He is the most impressive elementary school student I've ever seen. On the first day of school, he applied to skip grades. He even created this magic gun. While his peers are just starting to learn magic, he is already proficient in advanced magic. Sotan is an ordinary programmer and also a fanatic fan of Gundam. He buys every new model. While crossing the street with a new model Gundam, he was hit by an oncoming car and killed. Sotan then finds himself in a world of knights and magic. Now, he is a child named Eru. One day, while his family was out in a carriage, suddenly a giant bee monster blocked the road. Grandpa rushed to fight the monster, and Mom supported with magic. The monster, hit by the magic, staggered. Grandpa seized the opportunity and slashed the monster's belly with his sword, then finished it off with another strike. Just then, a larger monster attacked the carriage, tearing it apart with its claws. Eru dodged the deadly attack but fell from the shattered carriage. As the monster opened its huge mouth, a spell shot from a distance hit the monster's head. Eru, in disbelief, watched as a mech appeared, his favorite from his previous life, now real in this world. The mech charged, swinging its sword at the nearby monster. Only mechs can handle the large monsters in this world. The monster raised its sharp claws and knocked away the mech's shield, then clamped tightly onto the mech and pushed it to the ground, starting to burn it with flames. The pilot nearly lost his life, but then another mage mech quickly gathered magical power and launched a spell, hitting the monster's head. The knight mech seized the opportunity, overturned the monster pressing on it, and plunged a sword into its heart, pinning the monster to the ground permanently. Eru happily patted the robot and learned from his grandpa that the robot was called a silhouette knight, powered by magic. This left a deep impression on Eru. To become a qualified pilot, the young boy began to frantically study various magics and practice various sword techniques, all for his dream. He also discovered that the arrangement of magical elements was exactly like programming. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye and Eru reached school age. He looked at the tutorials in front of him, which were far too simple, so he proposed to skip grades. Naturally, the teacher wouldn't agree to such a preposterous idea. To successfully skip grades, he found a dwarf master to craft him an even more precise gun staff. At the scene of the new student's magic ability test, the teacher was evaluating the freshmen one by one. At that moment, Eru made a request. If his magic level far exceeded the test results, could he not study advanced courses? The teacher thought he was too arrogant, even though his grandfather was the dean. But Eru quickly proved everything with his strength. He pulled out his homemade magic gun staff, the armor-piercing flame gun. Magical elements instantly arranged in front of him. The gun staff swung lightly, and multiple magical arrows appeared. Eru pulled the trigger, and the magic arrows precisely hit the target. Then he switched to another spell, Thunderstorm Blast, completely destroying the target. The teacher was stunned by this display, and Eru got his wish to start learning advanced courses. Eru thus became a celebrity throughout the school. However, this was just the first step in his shocking the world. A group of magical beasts were fleeing. Behind them, a foot as large as a small mountain heavily hit the ground. It belonged to an old turtle, a division-level magical beast. Not only was it huge and tough-skinned, but the old turtle had also been causing trouble after 1,000 years of training, posing a terrifying threat that could destroy a nation. Students from the Knight Academy were training at the edge of the forest when suddenly, a large number of magical beasts burst out from the depths of the forest. The students formed a defensive line and began to counterattack, but without the silhouette knights, they couldn't withstand the beasts' onslaught. Their formation quickly dispersed as ape-like beasts charged at them. At that moment, Eru hurried to provide support, and his two best friends joined in to block the advancing beasts. Soon after, the Knight Squadron arrived, and in front of the powerful silhouette knights, the lower-level beasts had no chance of resisting and were left dead under precise magical attacks, temporarily alleviating the crisis. The human fortress was in ruins, strewn with remnants of silhouette knights. The division-level beast had exceeded the capacity of the stationed soldiers. Despite the desperate situation, they did not retreat for the sake of their homes behind them, determined to fight to the death. The old turtle's blood-red eyes looked towards the city walls, and invading the kingdom was only a matter of time. At the captain's command, all silhouette knights raised their staffs and launched a magical attack simultaneously. However, Hitting the old turtle caused no damage. It was like scratching an itch. It was like a group of ants biting an elephant. The silhouette knights that couldn't dodge in time were crushed underfoot. Even with all their strength, they could hardly resist. The old turtle broke through the defenses and arrived at the forest where the students were located. Now, only the silhouette knights could restrain the old turtle. To buy time for retreat, they launched a magical attack together, drawing the old turtle's attention. Seeing the old turtle move slowly and unable to fight back, a red mecha raced through the forest, its pilot exceedingly arrogant, clearly unscathed by societal beatings and unaware of how terrifying a division-level magical beast could be, attempting to take down the old turtle alone, ignoring the captain's orders. Soon the old turtle unleashed a breath of flame, the pilot unable to react in time and was burnt to ashes. Dietrich, witnessing this hellish scene, was so frightened he yelled to go home to his mother and fled the battlefield, his previous arrogance gone. But the mecha quickly ran out of power. Dietrich was still making excuses for his escape when Eru happened upon him. He simply knocked out his senior, tied him up, and personally took over the silhouette knight. Pulling out the control handle and replacing it with his specially made gun staff, he invaded the core of the mecha, inputting his own programmed magical formulas, forcibly taking control of the mecha. The kingdom's models were designed hundreds of years ago, with no new developments or modifications. The red mecha stood up again. Eru controlled the mecha to move forward, climbing up the slope in just a few steps. Its movements became more agile thereafter, racing wildly through the forest. With a big jump, it easily cleared obstacles, even using the air to jump again. It seemed that only Eru could truly maximize the mecha's performance, achieving a unity between man and machine. And he finally fulfilled his Gundam dream. On another battlefield, a student piloting a silhouette knight was struggling in battle. Even seasoned soldiers were no match, and they finally understood the terror of a division-level magical beast. At this moment, Eru entered the battlefield in the red mecha. Without a word, he drew his sword and slashed at the old turtle. Sparks flew from the intense collision, but the millennia-old turtle's skin was too thick. So, he targeted its weaker spots. Controlling the mecha, he leaped high, raising his long sword and plunging it straight into the old turtle's eye. The old turtle, in pain, stomped towards Eru, who dodged nimbly, and even its breath was effortlessly avoided. Eru ran swiftly on the old turtle's back, looking for an opportunity to strike. Dodging attacks, he thrust his sword into the old turtle's leg, sparks flying upon collision, but it caused no damage. It turned out the old turtle was using a full-body strengthening spell. It seemed a long battle was inevitable. The intense jolting woke Dietrich, who, seeing the turtle head so close, wet his pants again. Eru dodged another attack, charged forward, and slashed at the old turtle's large foot, only to break his longsword. Eru quickly retreated, just as the support troops arrived on the scene. Seeing the agile movements of the red mecha, they were utterly dumbfounded, wondering if it was really a person inside. The commander immediately ordered covering fire, allowing the red mecha to retreat to a safe position. The mecha assault team took the chance to drive a piercing stake into the old turtle's body. The old turtle, in pain, threw back its head and roared, then lowered its head and released a powerful spell around its body, burning the attacking troops to ashes. Seeing the heavy losses, Eru controlled the mecha to charge forward, stabbing his sword into the old turtle's leg. It turned out its strengthening magic was also nearing its limit. The support troops, seizing the opportunity, launched a group attack. Just as Eru was about to deliver a fatal blow, the mecha suddenly lost control, sparks flying from its body. It turned out the metal of the mecha had also reached its limit. Unable to kill the old turtle, everyone was in danger. Eru had to use himself as bait to attract the old turtle's attention. A powerful magical formation instantly caught the old turtle's eye. Then Soten fired a pneumatic cannonball. The mecha grabbed the sword hilt, employed lightning magic, and through the eye nerves, a powerful current directly attacked the old turtle's brain. Even the mighty division-level magical beast had its brain fried into mush. Two silhouette knights were engaged in fierce combat. The white mecha was defenseless against the gray mecha's killing blow. But just then, an accident happened. News of Eru killing the old turtle reached the palace. The king immediately summoned Eru. In the Great Hall, Eru's demeanor was calm, yet his features were strikingly delicate. The king was very curious. The report said Eru was a boy, but he looked as delicate as a girl. The king greatly appreciated Iru's brave performance and decided to grant him a request. Unexpectedly, Iru's request was to learn how to make a magic conversion furnace, the nation's top secret, known only to the royal family. Iru expressed his wish to build his own mecha from scratch. The room fell silent instantly, and the air turned cold. After a moment, the king couldn't help but laugh. Although Eru had defeated the old turtle, he was not yet qualified to know this secret, but he was still given a chance. As long as he could create a mech frame that the king liked, the king would share the secret with him. Eru, who was a Gundam fan in his previous life, found making a frame a piece of cake. Thus, Eru headed to the repair shop to build a brand new mech. Eru proposed his first design: muscles made of crystallized fibers, twisting fragile single fibers together to maintain optimal contractility, achieving enhanced strength. Helvi's mech was under repair, and Eru promised to fix it for her, making it even better than before. Eru proposed a second design: installing 2 auxiliary arms on the mech's back, which would allow simultaneous use of swordsmanship and magic. Just by adding a simple magic formula, the auxiliary arms could be made to operate flexibly and with an installed auto-targeting system, greatly improving the accuracy. The dwarf master was extremely surprised. Where did Eru get all these inspirations? Building new mechs required complex engineering and numerous parts, and it took a very long time. To speed up the work, Eru designed a mini-mech, whose greatest advantage was its simplicity in production, and it could also perform tasks like transport and rescue. In this way, after many experimental failures and improvements, the latest model of the mech was finally completed. Today was the day of the live test. The new mech slowly stood up. Its mobility and center of gravity were flawless. Next came the highlight of today, the test of the magic soldiers. The auxiliary arms unfolded, running very smoothly. The auto-targeting function was activated, and the magic bullets hit the targets, much faster than manual aiming. Everyone was so happy that they cried. At this time, the captain and Dietrich were also discussing the new mech. Helvi had a powerful new partner, and even though her skills were not as good as the captain's, she issued a challenge. Thus, the final evaluation began, the test of combat capability. The training ground was packed with spectators, and as the starting bell rang, the white mech made the first move. The new mech did not show weakness, and met it head-on, using magic for a long-distance attack to suppress, forcing the white mech into a defensive position. The new mech took the opportunity to swing its sword, and the white mech had no power to resist, completely shocked by the new muscle's power. It was then completely overwhelmed. This would undoubtedly lead to a loss, but the captain decided to take a gamble, converting all magic power into kinetic energy, and charged forward. The new mech's long-range firepower kept it suppressed, but the white mech blocked each shot, and with one final strike, it sent the sword flying. The new mech, unable to react in time, was knocked off balance by the white mech, which then leapt high, chopping off the new mech's auxiliary arm. Helvi wouldn't let it go as planned. She also turned her magic power to the maximum, grabbed the white mech and threw it aside, then raised her long sword to strike down. However, at that moment, the new mech experienced an accident, ultimately losing its balance. It turned out that the magic power was exhausted. In the evening, everyone celebrated the test results together, but one person quietly left, leaking the results of the new mech's test to a neighboring country. The blood-red land trembled non-stop. Suddenly, many huge bugs burst from the ground, and the silhouette knight seemed like a toy before them. And all this was because of a decision by the Duke. The new mech, although successfully produced, consumed too much magic power, making it difficult to use in actual combat. Everyone actively sought ways to improve it, and in the end, they could only add an extra external storage and half an apron, which was not only extremely ugly, but also severely affected the mech's balance. Eru had no choice but to put the new mech project on hold. The Obini Mountains divide the continent into eastern and western parts. Eru's country is located to the east of the mountains and is a nation that constantly battles with demonic beasts. Eru decides to create a mech that ordinary people can use and thus upgrades the mini-mech. Compared to the old model, its flexibility has significantly improved. It also features weapons that utilize synthetic muscle crystals. The equipped missiles are also quite powerful, and the most impressive feature is its rapid-fire capability, making it an essential tool for home and travel. Upon hearing the news of the new mech's evaluation, the Duke becomes very interested and sends the Crimson Hair Knight order to notify Iru and others to deliver the new mech to the Duke's territory. Thus, they set off in the rain. A mysterious person on the path of the Knight Order scatters an unknown powder, unbeknownst to them that they have entered a trap. The ground shakes, and suddenly, large worm-like beasts emerge from the ground. These are demonic creatures that they have never seen before. They attack upon seeing the mechs. The subterranean beasts are indeed difficult to handle, but by paying attention to the sounds of movement, one can determine their location. Iru, timing it right, soars high and starts counterattacking with his gun staff, blowing up the head of a giant worm with each shot. The remaining ones relentlessly pursue Eru, who skillfully maneuvers the aircraft to dodge and uses piercing flame gun magic, instantly blowing up several giant worms' heads. The Crimson Hair Knights hurry to finish them off. The Crimson Hair Knights seize the opportunity, stabbing the king worm's body, and the new mechs rush forward to plunge the magic staff into the worm's mouth, completely killing the disgusting beast. The battle ends in 10 minutes. The mysterious person, shocked by this super combat capability, quickly returns to report to their superiors. They are from the rival nation's Copperfang Knight Order. Seeing their plot fail, they concoct an even more malicious plan. Meanwhile, the leader of the Crimson Hair Knights reports the situation of the new mechs to the Duke. The new mechs far surpass the currently serviced mechs in speed, power, and combat ability. The Duke, valuing the potential strength enhancement for his nation, pays great attention to the mechs. From the first generation to the currently serviced mechs, it has been a span of 300 years with extensive resources expended. Iru took merely a month, which the Duke did not expect, as the new mech was just one of Iru's experiments with plans to develop even more powerful ones. This makes the Duke feel overwhelmed. As Iru and the Duke discuss further development, a group of vicious demonic beasts attacks a human village. The Silhouette Knight Order quickly assembles and departs to provide support. This attack is part of the enemy nation's plot and marks the beginning of future continental conquests. A schoolboy, not focused on typical studies, develops a new mech with extraordinary combat capabilities, but also becomes a target for various powers. That night, the enemy infiltrates the fortress. Fully armed, they attack the unprepared soldiers. The new mech is quickly located, and the leader urges his men to act quickly, destroying any mechs that cannot be taken, leaving none for the enemy. The explosion alerts Eru, who realizes the severity of the situation and requests to join the battle. But the Duke sternly refuses, as Eru is now an important talent with a research mission. The soldiers inside the fortress quickly retaliate, but ordinary attacks are ineffective against the mechs. The new mech was equipped with dual staffs and an auto-targeting feature. It destroyed the fortress on the city ramparts with a single strike. Reinforcements arrived and launched an attack, engaging in a fierce battle with the invaders. The enemy leader, not wanting to prolong the fight, ordered his subordinates to look for an opportunity to escape. Captain Chitu, driving the ace mech, joined the battle and knocked down an enemy minion with a single hammer strike. The captain pursued the victory, but was evaded by the retreating enemy. Another hammer blow was thrown, but it was blocked by the enemy driving a new mech. The new mech's arm strength surpassed that of the ace mech, Haimawoto, and temporarily could not defeat the opponent. Tonight's mission was to test the new mech, and they could not afford a war of attrition. While one held the captain busy, the other enemies took the opportunity to retreat in their mechs. Just when the enemy thought they were safe, they discovered two mechs approaching. Thinking it was an intercepting force, the leader attacked without a second thought. The captain and Dietrich quickly realized that the red mech, after being remodeled, had significantly improved in speed, strength, and agility. With a single sword strike, Dietrich disabled a minion. At that moment, Dietrich's confidence soared as he easily dodged the enemy's attacks and immediately taught them a lesson. The leader did not expect the two students to be so formidable and turned to flee, but was blocked by a white mech. His subordinates rushed over to hold the white mech, allowing the leader to escape quickly. To buy time for their leader, another mech employed a kamikaze tactic, grabbing the red mech and rolling off a cliff. During the fall, the red mech's auxiliary arm launched a magical attack that completely disabled the opposing mech. However, Dietrich was still too young. The enemy took advantage of his distraction and threw a flash grenade. After the blinding light, Dietrich could no longer see outside. Such a fierce battle could not be without a charming young boy. Iru, piloting a mini-mech, landed on top of an enemy mech. Iru then disrupted the mech's balance system and easily took down an enemy. He then looked for the next target, latched onto another mech with a steel cable, and landed on another mech. No one understood the structure of rear armaments better than Iru. After a burst of lightning magic and adjusting the position of his staffs, he easily performed a backflip to the ground and coolly turned away. The enemy, enraged, pressed the attack button and unwittingly sealed their own fate. Meanwhile, the white mech was fiercely fighting the enemy leader, but was outperformed by the new mech and quickly defeated. When Dietrich arrived, the captain was severely injured, and the enemy with the new mech had already escaped. The next day, the king summoned the students involved in developing the new mech model. To prevent a similar incident, the king decided to form a new knight order led by Iru, the Silver Phoenix Knights, who would later become renowned across the continent. Mechs always represent the romantic ideal of men, filled with a sense of machinery and destructive power. The centaur mech, wielding a spear, stood proudly in the field, astonishing everyone. The new mech left at the fortress was sent to the National Mech Research Institute. Its novel design amazed the researchers and was even difficult to analyze. The workshop director, furious at his subordinate's incompetence and overshadowed by a young boy in front of the king, was very unwilling and looked forward to defeating the boy in a competition 10 months later. Iru and his team returned to their base, continuing to develop even more powerful mechs. Iru decided to abandon the previous design and completely redesigned a new mech. To better protect the research and development results, the king dispatched 2 squadrons of mech knights to guard the Silver Phoenix Knights, and also sent an elite intelligence unit to eliminate the lurking spies. The Silver Phoenix Knights began constructing even stronger mechs, starting with testing the thrusters. The powerful propulsion was frightening. Next, they worked on connecting the conduction wires and the painting of the exterior. The new model was finally assembled. Iru could hardly wait. With Iru's activation, magical power began to pour into the mech, and the thrusters spewed flames. A huge noise ensued, shattering the glass of the academy and causing thick smoke to rise in the distance. The new mech had vanished, leaving a long trench in the ground. Archid and the others quickly ran to inspect the situation. The once brand new mech was now a pile of scrap metal. Iru almost met his end in this episode. When he awoke again, he immediately identified the problem. The output power was too great for the mech to withstand. It was necessary to change the relationship between the spell pattern and output. Back at the base, Iru proposed a new reform plan and selected new pilots for the mech body, Archid and Adeltrud. This new model was different from previous ones, utilizing a 2-person operation mode due to its large size and high magical power consumption, which required the installation of 2 magical power converters to fully utilize the mech's capabilities. Iru also learned from the previous lesson and specially created a key for starting the mech. Without the key, the mech could not be activated. The new mech's assembly also entered the final stage. Adeltrud's piloting became increasingly proficient, and Iru continuously explained the new mech's features. Meanwhile, the National Research Institute also accelerated the assembly work of the new model. The long-awaited competition between the workshop director and Iru was finally approaching. The Institute's mech entered the field first, moving neatly and facing the king for inspection, lined up in a row, with the pilots saluting the king from their cockpits. The workshop director, unable to contain his excitement, began to praise his creations to the king. Next, it was time for the Silver Phoenix Knights' entrance. The centaur-shaped mech, accompanied by 2 other machines, made a dazzling appearance. The strong propulsion instantly launched the mech, flying close to the ground like a rocket, surpassing the centaur-shaped mech ahead. The opponents quickly attempted remote suppression. Iru smiled lightly and dodged the attack with ease. Today was the day for the Silver Phoenix Knights to compete against the Research Institute. The Silver Phoenix Knights fielded 4 mechs, and the Institute fielded 6 new mechs, all piloted by the nation's best drivers. Both teams were ready. At the referee's signal, the match officially began. The centaur-shaped mech, with the strongest mobility, launched the charge first. The opponents immediately split 3 mechs to meet the charge, all ace pilots truly fearless in the face of danger. Both sides charged at each other. Iru, calm and collected, activated the magical jet thrusters, all systems normal, and manually shifted directly into 5th gear. The powerful thrusters took off, lifting the entire mech into the air, stunning everyone. In hundreds of years of history, no mech had ever flown. Instantly overtaking the centaur-shaped mech, the opponents hurriedly tried to suppress it with remote firepower, but Iru easily dodged with a strategic move. The opponents, unable to react in time, were knocked out of the arena. Iru claimed the first victory of the match, greatly boosting morale. The centaur mech also charged forward with a lance in hand, but the opponent sidestepped the attack. The centaur mech's speed was extremely fast, not giving the opponents a chance to surround it. This was precisely the tactic Iru had arranged. The team facing the centaur mech acted first, with the 2 senior pilots bearing the pressure of fighting outnumbered. On another front, the red mech and the white mech formed a tactical formation. The opponent used traditional long-range firepower for suppression. The white mech had been thoroughly upgraded, and this level of firepower could not stop it. The red mech leaped high and struck down at the opponent with a sword. The red mech was designed as a warrior type, with strength and speed as its features, completely overpowering the opponent. Suddenly, the shield of the white mech cracked open, and a steel cable shot out, embedding itself in the opponent's shield. With a slight exertion of force, it forced the opponent to voluntarily discard the shield. The Silver Phoenix Knights gained an absolute advantage. The match had now reached its climax, and neither side held back. The red mech even took on 2 mechs alone, not showing the slightest disadvantage, leaving the opponent without any spirit to fight. The white mech blocked an opponent's sword strike, but made a mistake. The opponent reacted quickly and struck at the mech's body. The centaur mech also found an opportunity to attack. The opponent, not daring to let it get close, attempted to suppress it with rapid long-range firepower. Utilizing its mobility, the centaur mech dodged all attacks with serpentine movements, then leaped high and knocked down the opponent with a kick. The match entered a critical moment, with both sides running low on magical power, leading to a stalemate in combat strength. The opponent still had 1 mech maintaining combat power. Everyone seemed to have forgotten about Iru on the field. Now was his time to shine. With agile movements, he dodged all attacks and delivered a kick from above, directly to the opponent. Both sides fought spectacularly. The king declared the match a draw, but Iru's troubles were just beginning. He had caught the attention of a strange person. The story goes back to a month earlier, in the year 1280. Ambrosius Tavo announced his abdication, having plenty of personal time. He summoned Eru, hoping he could build a mech for him to have some fun fighting magical beasts. The prince had long admired Iru's mechs, and this was an opportunity he would not miss. Iru, being a mech enthusiast, only needed to be told the requirements. Prince Jade was indeed Ambrosius Tavo's grandson, with his only requirement for the mech being power. Back at the base, Iru began constructing a royal custom mech. The assembly work proceeded smoothly, and the magical conveyance machines greatly improved work efficiency. The royal custom mechs, a golden lion and a silver tiger, were completed. Iru, the mech enthusiast, delivered in terms of strength, defense, and mobility, culminating in the pinnacle of mech design, which greatly satisfied them. However, both chose the golden lion at the same time. Ambrosius Tavo's family truly valued strength above all. The prince raised his great sword and launched the first attack. Ambrosius Tavo also raised his lance to meet the battle. The prince's attack seemed too hasty, and Ambrosius Tavo spotted a flaw, seizing the opportunity to drive him back. Ambrosius Tavo handled his lance expertly, surely having been a top-tier combat knight in his youth. The prince felt the pressure, as Ambrosius Tavo's combat stance was flawless. Seeing no flaws, the prince charged again. Ambrosius Tavo, noticing the prince's overeager attack causing instability in his footing, thrust his spear down. Suddenly, Yuzi soared into the air. Just when he thought he was certain to win, proved that experience still counts. Ambrosius Tavo threw aside his spear, grabbed the prince's mech, and executed a perfect over-the-shoulder throw. The prince cleverly used the recoil of magic to skillfully avert the crisis. Ambrosius Tavo sighed, relieved there was a successor. The furious prince launched a fierce attack, chopped Ambrosius Tavo's spear in two, and won the duel. The golden lion finally belonged to the prince. In fact, aside from their appearances, the silver tiger had exactly the same capabilities. This competition, win or lose, was a valuable experience Ambrosius Tavo wanted to leave for the prince. In the face of a dense horde of magical beasts, even the steel knights seemed so frail. Large magical beasts kept attacking from a distance, while small beasts had already breached the defense platforms, quickly overwhelming a mech. Breaking through the defenses was only a matter of time. The new king personally led the charge, discussing with everyone how to deal with the crisis. The shell-type magical beasts are social creatures, similar to ants and bees, bred and controlled by a queen in the horde. As the horde advanced, there was an inviolable place in the kingdom, known as Alheimer, news of which was sent back to the capital. Ambrosius Tavo immediately summoned the Silver Phoenix Knights, as the horde was moving towards Alheimer, the birthplace of the magic conversion furnaces. Magic conversion furnaces absorb the medium in the air and transform it into magic, acting as the heart of mechs, which if destroyed by magical beasts, would make it impossible to produce mechs ever again. Eru, having reincarnated into the world of mechs, would never allow this place to be destroyed. He deployed the entire Knight Order to eradicate the horde, to buy time for Arnis's colleagues to fortify defenses. The battle knights were ready to risk their lives. At that moment, a cloud of dust rose in the distance, as human mechs pulling several war chariots rushed to aid. The Silver Phoenix Knights had arrived for battle, cutting a path straight through the magical beast horde. Instantly, the battle intensified. This man, who worshipped power, could hardly wait. This was the Golden Lion's first battle. The Golden Lion was ready to unleash full firepower, which brought the man immense pleasure. But the next second, he realized the cost. The Golden Lion faltered. Ambrosius Tavo sent Eru to find the horde's queen, leaving the rest to them. The second squadron, led by Dietrich, saw the red mechs upgraded, now equipped with shoulder-mounted magical thrusters, granting them the ability to fly. Their mobility greatly enhanced, and dual swords also increased their combat effectiveness. Meanwhile, the student team leader's mech was upgraded to a whole new level, equipped with dual shields and tremendous firepower, making it a terrifying force. The human mech squadron became a reaper of magical beasts. Eru, searching for the horde's queen, activated the special equipment on the war chariot, incidentally taking a wave of magical beasts with him. The new auxiliary equipment was so powerful because it was equipped with dual magic conversion furnaces, and the extremely mobile dual rider horse mech was like a land aircraft carrier. Just then, a huge claw descended from the sky. The human mech quickly dodged. The long-legged monster before them was the Shell Queen, a magical beast on the same level as the old turtle. Eru immediately commanded an attack. The queen's legs were incredibly tough. Ordinary attacks had no effect. Eru immediately targeted the queen's weak spots, with the war chariot circling around her, attacking in a 360-degree rotation. In no time at all, it punctured its stomach. The wounded queen went berserk, pursuing the chariot at high speed, even surpassing the speed of the human mech armor. In such extreme crisis scenarios, typically, the protagonist personally intervenes to resolve the crisis. Eru, using a broken log, leaped into the air, where his magic cannon began to unleash its power, breaking the queen's long legs, causing her to heavily fall to the ground. Eru then removed the huge blade from the chariot, wrapped it with enough metal wire, and hurled the massive blade, embedding it into the queen's forehead. Eru immediately activated the lightning magic, and as the magic continuously transmitted, the division-level Shell Queen's brain was electrocuted into mush, effectively killing her. That day, Ambrosius Tavo summoned Eru alone. Eru, with numerous military exploits and having developed many new mechs, is an invaluable talent for the kingdom. Following their previous agreement, Ambrosius Tavo promised to teach him the method of making the magic conversion furnace. Eru, containing his excitement, wanted to immediately learn the manufacturing method, so he took a carriage to Alheimer. A guard in the carriage revealed his true identity to him. They are descendants of the Concealers, with an average lifespan of 500 years, inheriting magic and technology. Passing through a dim tunnel, Eru was dazzled as they arrived in a dreamlike world, where houses shaped like fruits hung from large, sturdy tower-like structures. The guard took them to meet the elders. Since Iru had protected Alheimer, the elder agreed to teach him the manufacturing method. The principle of the conversion furnace is to absorb magical elements and convert them into power. The manufacturing method is also very simple, using specially prepared blood, engraved on the magic conversion furnace, called the Song of Life by the Concealers. A huge spell, requiring high-density mithril to support. Mithril's hardness makes even dwarves headache, but in the hands of the Concealers, they can freely alter its state. It turns out that, like magical beasts, Concealers also use a magic catalyst crystal, which is why outsiders cannot make conversion furnaces. The power of the conversion furnace relates to the size of the magical beast's catalyst. The more powerful the magical beast, the larger the spiritual medium crystal, and the higher the output power. Mass-produced furnaces are made from catalyst crystals mined from the mountains. At this point, Iru already knew how to make it. He just lacked a powerful catalyst crystal, and Ambrosius Tavo naturally understood immediately and agreed to his request. To master more knowledge about conversion furnaces, Iru stayed in Alheimer. He began to study diligently, reviewing a large amount of material and observing the Concealer's manufacturing process. Iru demonstrated amazing talent, mastering all the tricks in just 3 months. Returning to the royal capital, he immediately developed the Gundam of his dreams, delegating the assembly of parts to his subordinates, personally making the magic conversion furnace. Finally, the core of the mech was completed, and the Gundam also entered the final stage of assembly. As the installation of various departments was completed, the spotted dove officially awakened. Suddenly, dozens of airships appeared in the sky, then initiated airdrop mode. The combat power of the black mechs directly overwhelmed the opposition. The Western Kingdom of Zaludek, long scheming, had amassed a large number of mech knights and launched attacks on surrounding countries. The alliance of Western countries was annihilated within a month, and they had already entered the borders of the Kingdom of Kushpercha, where the knights began to engage in direct combat. Kushpercha's mechs, like straw men, were no match and were instantly annihilated. This is the latest mecha unit of Zaludek, the Taranto Dark Knights. The Taranto Knights surrounded 3 fortresses, but did not launch a fierce attack as before. This gave the king of Kushpercha hope, deciding to concentrate all military forces at the 3 fortresses, believing it was a good opportunity to turn the tide. However, what they didn't know was that all their actions were being watched by the enemy, which was part of the enemy's strategy to lure the tiger away from the mountain. The second prince of Zaludek was in charge of this operation. Tonight, he would be staying in the castle of Kushpercha. The airships began to airdrop the Taranto Knights. Upon landing, the Taranto immediately initiated long-range firepower suppression. The opposing knights were annihilated before they could react. The guards actually used catapults against the mechas, which was like throwing eggs at rocks. It was clear they wouldn't last long. Soon, the knights of Kushpercha arrived, but in the face of the fierce Taranto, the mechas of Kushpercha were like paper figures, completely unable to withstand a hit. The capital, without an army, was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Loyal knights were still defending the stronghold, but were quickly ambushed by the enemy's assassin squad. The king knew he could no longer hold off the enemy, so he arranged for his family to secretly evacuate the capital, and he himself resolved to fight to the end. The king activated his exclusive mecha. The deserted capital simply could not withstand the fierce Taranto. Soon they reached the last line of defense. At that moment, the gate suddenly opened. The king of Kushpercha led the remaining knights to meet the enemy in battle, and requested a duel with the opposing commander. The second prince of Zaludek had been waiting for a long time. Next came the battle between the commanders. After an exchange of blows, it was clear that the king's mecha was no match, being severely suppressed by the white Taranto. He was quickly battered all over. The king vowed to never surrender, launching one final strike. With the king's defeat, the capital of Kushpercha completely fell. At the same time, the 3 fortresses were also captured, and the princess, carrying the hopes of restoring the nation, was also captured en route. Thus, the entire west fell into the hands of Zaludek. That night, Iru and his group sneaked into the castle. According to Nora's intelligence, the princess and others were trapped among 4 spires. The upgraded mini-mechas were truly silent. The guards didn't hear a sound, dodging all patrolling soldiers. Leaving one person to support at any time, the others immediately split up. Iru rescued the Grand Duchess. The prince rescued his beloved cousin. Adeltrude found an empty room. Archid became the lucky one, but he faced a dilemma. The princess, having lost all hope, without family, without anything to live for, refused to burden others anymore, urging Archid to leave quickly. Outside, the warning bells began to ring. Archid swore to become the princess's knight, willing to wield his sword to protect her. The princess was instantly moved, and Archid successfully completed his mission. Upon learning that the princess had been rescued, the bearded man flew into a rage, starting the airship to chase after Iru and the others. On the ship was a special person, the designer of the airship, Horatio. He wanted to see the legendary death god Mecha. The next day, the airship spotted running people in mechas on the road. The Silver Phoenix Knights also spotted the airship. Isn't this just an airplane from a past life? Eru was extremely excited. In this world, someone had managed to build an airplane. Someone had mastered a technology he hadn't. At that moment, the airship began to airdrop mechas. Iru also piloted the spotted dove to meet them. Seeing the flying silhouette knight, the bearded man's face was incredulous. Horatio was even more exaggerated, astounded that someone else besides him had mastered flying technology. Iru effortlessly took one down. He climbed aboard the spaceship, and upon seeing such exquisite design, the cells of genius within him stirred again. A black mecha attacked Iru with magic, but Iru gladly took on the mechas that came his way. The bearded man sensed trouble, turned the ship's bow, and started to flee. Iru did not pursue, for he had more important matters to attend to. However, Horatio on the ship was stimulated by this. The sky was his domain, and he vowed to deal with Iru next time. Both were top talents from the continents, but who would ultimately prove superior? Later, Iru and his group arrived at a small town. The Grand Duke's wife also met with her surviving subordinates. At this time, Eru proposed a deal. The mechas of Kushpercha had issues with insufficient firepower and defense. The Silver Phoenix Knights could offer modifications, with the reward being all the captured enemy knights handed over to them. The Grand Duke's wife thought it over, seeing it as a fair deal. At that moment, Zaludek's forces had already attacked the town. Kushpercha's mechas began their defense. Now the mechas were not only wearing bulletproof vests, but were also equipped with 6 machine guns, multiplying their firepower several times. Zaludek's army had no choice but to retreat. Kushpercha finally turned the tables. Unwilling to accept defeat, Zaludek resorted to old tricks. They infiltrated the castle to steal the latest mecha of the Silver Phoenix Knights. After entering the cockpit, they found it impossible to start. All of this was within Eru's expectations. He caught the enemies who had infiltrated, and the captain started the mecha, locating the enemy outside waiting for support. A fierce battle ensued. After the white mecha was upgraded, its defense was terrifyingly strong. The enemy's assassin mecha could not gain any advantage, but the captain heard a familiar voice, the thief who had defeated him and stolen the mecha before. The captain, seeking to redeem his honor, launched the mecha into action. The assassin mecha seized the moment, gripping the long sword of the white mecha, and from behind, a scythe of death extended, which deployed 2 shields from its back, striking hard at the assassin mecha. Following this, the sword pierced through the enemy. Zaludek's spaceship arrived at the last territory of Kushpercha, intending to eliminate all resistance once and for all. Suddenly, the sky around the spaceship was lit with an unusual brightness. Before the enemy could understand what was happening, countless magic-guided spears rose from the ground, soaring to a certain height before turning towards the spaceship, piercing through its deck instantly. This was the first time since the war began that the spaceship had suffered such destructive damage. The enemy army was stunned, wondering how the spears could be thrown so high, completely overturning their understanding. Seeing the spears still attacking, the enemy general experienced in countless battles and decisively dropped the black mecha from high altitude. The confused soldiers cried and screamed as they fell, but the knights who landed safely were then attacked by a long ambushing mecha force, taking a large group in a sweeping attack. Iru observed the situation from another hillside. Now it was his turn to enter the fray. The dove quickly ascended, utilizing its agile maneuverability to continuously damage the enemy's spaceship. The second prince, furious and desperate, ordered the black mecha troops to launch a fierce attack. A golden mecha made a brilliant entrance, as if in the entire play, the director allowed him only one move, but its power was still impressively full. Seizing the opportunity, Dietrich led the second squadron to begin their harvest. Helvi's mechanized cavalry detoured behind the enemy, surrounding the black mechs. The ground mech troops were completely annihilated, and the second prince finally felt fear. Spotting the fleeing spaceship, Archid enthusiastically used a magic-guided spear to hold the guests. The fleeing spaceship caught Iru's attention, and being the first to flee, it surely carried a big fish. Indeed, Zaludek's second prince was aboard. His mech looked mighty, but it was unfortunate to encounter Iru's pigeon, like a baby facing Superman. A fight was no longer an option. However, the prince still planned to tempt Iru with wealth and grandeur to betray his cause. But Iru declared that he controlled all rights to the development of Silhouette Knights, acting as the National Gem's proxy, and his command over all knights even surpassed that of the king. Not even the king's own son held such power. Deeply shaken, the prince crashed along with the spaceship. Ultimately, Kshapero emerged victorious, and Zaludek very cooperatively withdrew their troops. Kshapero effortlessly reclaimed the lost territories, and the princess ascended to the throne as queen, launching a comprehensive counterattack against Zaludek, reclaiming city after city without even needing Eru to lift a finger. Everyone was exceedingly joyful until they suddenly spotted a steel dragon in the distant sky. The enemy genius, Horatio, had created this steel dragon to settle scores with Eru. The dragon's magical attacks were so fierce that even Eru was wary. The dragon relentlessly pursued Eru, constantly spewing magic attacks from its mouth. Eru deftly dodged and retaliated at every opportunity. When the dragon activated its air defense, its lightning shield blocked Eru's attacks, followed by a dense barrage, determined to bring down Eru today. This could not continue indefinitely, so Eru increased his power and flew straight towards the dragon's body. The bearded man had been waiting for a long time, and immediately the dragon's tail swiped, narrowly missing Eru. Then, it quickly turned its body and attacked Eru with its massive claws, missing and starting an intense barrage. Eru was forced to distance himself. The land battle was also fiercely intense. Kilmart and Dietrich, already old rivals, sparked immediately upon meeting. Their underlings also competed fiercely. Kilmart's attacks were sharp, and with an auxiliary arm, he pulled out a long sword for a sneak attack. Dietrich hastily retreated, overwhelmed by the number of Kilmart's swords. Leaping high, Kilmart launched an aerial attack, which Dietrich narrowly dodged, proving he was no easy target. Kilmart quickly attacked again, and their long swords collided, sparking intensely. Kilmart increased his power output, severing Dietrich's long sword. Dietrich's mech was severely damaged. Just as Kilmart was about to deliver the killing blow, Dietrich suddenly released a steel cable dart, entangling the opponent's sword. Unaware of what had happened, Kilmart was hit by a massive electric shock, forcing him to drop his longsword. Stunned, Kilmart's body went numb, and Dietrich, seizing the opportunity, embraced Kilmart's mech at full power. Strength was not Kilmart's forte, and he struggled to break free. Kilmart soon paid the price, completely suppressed by Dietrich's mech. The outcome was already determined. A man and a dragon entered a war of attrition. The dragon's 13 magic furnaces were already emptying, 3 depleted, while Eru's magic seemed inexhaustible. Seeing the situation turning against Eru, his wife arrived with anti-air weapons to support. Magic-guided spears shot towards the sky, and the dragon immediately activated its lightning defense to block the spears. Unfortunately, one penetrated the defense net and struck the dragon's body directly. Eru spotted a flaw, quickly ascended to high altitudes, deployed 4 mechanical arms, and landed on the back of the dragon. The dragon began to flip its massive body, and Eru was once again thrown off. Unable to defeat Eru after so much time, the bearded man activated a secret weapon. The dragon's body was immediately enveloped in smoke, specifically designed against magical propulsion, containing many substances. Even if it couldn't destroy the magic conversion furnace, it would still damage the internal magical circuits. Eru rapidly fell to the ground. The dragon seized the opportunity, opening its massive maw for a powerful attack. The strength of the dove is not just in flying. Its magical attacks are also top tier. At this moment, the dragon's magical power was less than 10%. The bearded man retreated reluctantly. Horatio had created an enormous magical conversion furnace, which he named the Dragon Blood Furnace. Although it could provide formidable power, it was also a double-edged sword. If out of control, it could endanger their own. The bearded man didn't care, as long as it could defeat Eru. Kshaparov was also developing offensive tactics. The queen decided to take command herself, preparing for the final battle with Zaludek. This was the ultimate showdown between two geniuses, and a decisive battle for the fate of the continent. The oppressive presence of the dragon was intense. Only the dove could match it in battle. The battle began. Countless magical spears flew towards the dragon, blocked by the dragon's lightning magic. This was also part of Eru's plan. The spears shattered, spilling oil all over the dragon, which was then ignited with a single shot. Eru intended to personally bring down the evil. The dragon's engine was continuously damaged, the bearded man decided, from a bicycle to a motorcycle, commanding the activation of the Dragon Blood Furnace. A massive magical output began, unleashing its greatest form. This sudden change startled everyone. Eru tried using magical attacks, but couldn't break through the energy defense. The dragon extended energy claws towards Eru, who narrowly dodged them. Powerful firepower chased after Eru in a mad barrage. Eru sensed something was off. A human-made ship couldn't suddenly grow larger. It was just an energy shield. Eru immediately changed his tactics, concentrating all his magic at the tip of his sword, and accelerated towards the dragon. The bearded man wouldn't have it his way, immediately launching a breath magic attack. Eru dodged to the side, shouting, "Break!" Horatio clearly didn't understand the relationship between points and planes. The sword tip collided with the magical shield, sparking blue flames. Eru broke through the shield and entered. The dragon's claws shot out, but Eru had anticipated these tricks, quickly clearing all obstacles. The tables turned. Now it was Eru chasing the dragon. Under the powerful firepower of the dove, the dragon's overflowing energy shield quickly vanished. Now only the bearded man remained, yet he still refused to concede. Unable to overcome the dove, he shifted the battlefield, steering the dragon towards the queen. If the queen fell, Kshaparov would crumble. This could not be allowed. Eru accelerated towards the dragon. The dove unleashed its maximum power to prevent the dragon's descent. The bearded man drew his weapon, launching magical attacks towards the ground. Eru blocked the dragon, unable to free his hands to attack. In a critical moment, Archid and his centaur mech arrived. The bearded man swung his 40-meter greatsword, which Archid's 100-meter war spear pierced thoroughly. The bearded man met his end, and the dragon too was pushed to change its course. Zaludek's ambitions were extinguished. A fan asked me why there was no romance in the entire saga. I specifically organized this. Regarding the Silver Phoenix Knights, the men are all wooden, starting with Archid and the princess. From the moment Archid first took his oath, the princess had already fallen for him. The princess personally fed Archid, and even took the initiative to hug him. Archid must have felt something, but he probably thought he wasn't good enough yet. Next, there's Edgar and Helvi. Edgar swore by Helvi's sickbed that he would personally retrieve the stolen new mech for her. That's when Helvi started to fall for him. Lastly, there's Eru. His childhood friend Adeltrude sticks to him whenever she has a chance. But this man, who has been single for 30 years in his previous life, is only focused on realizing his dream of mechs. Hopefully, if there's a second season, we'll see them all paired up.